this. Here we go. Well, I am going to invite Joyce. Would you open us with a word of prayer?
Sure. Okay. Yes, thank you, Lord. Thank you for this time that we're gathered together. I pray that as we commune together, that it will be in our midst and we'll enjoy ourselves and have a wonderful time. And each of us will just have a personal touch from you. Just I pray. Amen.
Woohoo! Come on. Amen.
Lord,
She was so quick with that one. I barely had time to close my eyes. That's awesome. Amen. Amen. Awesome. That's awesome. Well, come on. Well, God is so good, guys, and I'm really excited. You know, our missions trip's coming up, and we've got over 20 people signed up. It's gonna be an epic trip. You know, we'll get you in for any last minute people want to come on. Like maybe tonight could be the final night if anybody wants to. If not, we give grace and we will not twist arms. But it's going to be an epic time. So anyway, we're very excited. I just bought my tickets today to get there, and so anyway, we're excited, and it's going to be a special time. Well, having said all that, we would love to do a couple quick announcements. Peter, what book are we reading right now?
We should be on Equipping the Equippers by Jonathan Welton.
Equipping the Equippers.
You guys have 2 months to read this book. It's a fast read, this one. It's a really small book, but it's packed with juice. I really like this book.
Anybody started reading it?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, Tim, come on.
Elaine's reading it. Hosam's
come
reading
on.
it. Come on.
Oh,
so
nice.
How far are you guys in? They're like, I've read the title page.
Yeah, I read the
I've read
author's
the
name.
table of continents.
I read the introduction.
I got through the introduction. Come on.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's amazing. No, it's a phenomenal. Peter, you were saying that. What's your favorite part?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Esther because she read 2/3. How's it been for you, Esther?
Been really good. Like I think after the first chapter, I already started telling people about it.
Nice. Come on. What's one thing that you found interesting or revelatory?
Why are you like telling people you have to read this?
Yeah.
I think just because I feel like it's such a missing piece in at least from what I observe as the modern church. I feel like it's a missing and core piece. I think what was really interesting was when he kind of explained that verse in Corinthians where it says, the parts of the body that are honorable and the parts that are dishonorable. And like, giving honor to the parts that are dishonorable. And I didn't know that like he referred that to the fivefold ministry as being the dishonorable parts, and then he brought about that analogy where they are kind of like the excretion and reproductive systems, because they are like kind of key systems to make sure that the body is healthy and not toxic. And I just thought like, wow, like that's so true of the fivefold, and just they should be honored because of just the amount of service and kind of dirty work that they do for the church. I just thought it was really
that's beautiful,
eye-opening.
Come on.
Wow. Come on.
When you get to the end of the book, what Joseph said he has, and he needs to reread, but when you get to the end, the last section they have in there, it's more of an appendix to the book, but it's on women in ministry, which in my opinion is why this book is worth whatever price you pay. It's a short section, but it's probably the most condensed and theological part of the book, where really it gives you the historical and a great theological perspective on women in ministry and their place in the church. And by the way, it's pro pro women.
Yeah, pro
in real
woman
estate.
and leadership.
FYI, anyway, if
I know.
you're wondering where we stood
There's
on this,
suspense in the room.
is very
Yeah.
pro. So we are very pro,
Awesome.
and
Yup.
it really gives. If you were ever challenged in as a woman in a ministry position, you know, this will give you really food for thought you can give to the critics. All right.
Mm.
Hey, Allie, welcome, and hey, Errol, welcome.
Good to see you guys.
Come on. Woohoo. All right. Am I lagging at all, guys? I'm just curious.
No, you're good.
No? Okay, because my computer seems to be lagging a little bit. But all right, well, why don't we remind you guys as well, Destiny Encounter starts next month. And
Yes.
Peter, which group is our launch group?
Let me check.
Tim's pointing at himself. Tim and Jess's group.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I know we've sent out schedules. If you need those again, just message us.
Yep. Tim and Jess.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. We're going to start promoting it here pretty soon. And honestly, those sessions are gold. And you know, as all of you participated last year in them, you know, for yourself how it helped you grow. It's going to really help your group grow. And you know, more fire through Destiny Encounters. All right. Last announcement would be well, missions trips already closed, but like I said earlier, if there's anybody here last minute, you want to get a hold of me, you can do so. All right. It's really going to be an epic trip of huge proportions, I believe. So and I've already been told a little bit, like, you know, we're going to be doing a prophetic night for like a group from Nagaland, and we're going to do all kinds of crazy fun stuff. So it's going to be an epic trip. Anyway, all that to say, we're going to jump into just some brief, give us some highs and lows from your cohort groups this month. What's God been up to? And maybe one thing that you guys have found in your cohort group, something that you found like so encouraging, something that you found challenging, and something that you guys would like to see grow more in your community, your cohort groups. So why don't we start? Because like there's only a couple where we have everybody here tonight. So why don't we start with Joyce and Allie?
Ellie, you want to go?
Yeah, they're looking at me like, what? Yeah, we'll start with you guys. What's going on in your cohort group? I just met with Beth, by the way, in your cohort group.
Oh, I hope she had good things to say.
You know, she's just said, you know, there's two ladies that were the leaders, you know. She said, you know, I show up every month with the two of them. And that's what she said, and they're awesome. But she said there were other people that don't show up every month. But she's there every month with the two awesome leaders. So
Oh, yeah. She said the same to me when I met with her.
Two
she
very
likes you guys. So like maybe like I said, something encouraging you guys are seeing, any testimonies, something maybe that you guys are finding challenging, and something that you'd like to see grow in your cohort group. So Joyce, Allie, like asking if Beth liked it or not wasn't your sharing. So sorry, I'm sharp tonight. Okay, Allie, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like Joyce and I can teamwork very well. And sometimes even if we are very busy and we just huddle together for a while to plan, then the Lord really like shows up and like we really flow, and I feel like
Wow.
things work out. And I like that everyone isn't afraid to share in the cohort group.
Mm.
And to participate in the cohort group.
Mm.
I think one challenge maybe is that not everyone does the activations. Even we like remind them and stuff. Yeah. And I don't know what was the other question? Challenge?
Something you
What?
want to see grow in your group.
Oh. I'll think about that. Joyce can answer first.
Okay.
I think maybe the vulnerability aspect. So I feel like they're all very like eager to share when it comes to like prophetic spiritual stuff, but I feel like I don't really know much about like their life in terms of like it's just more like, oh, this happened, that, and then I'm doing this for ministry and that for work, but not like really like the hard stuff. And yeah, I think just praying for like the right moment where we can kind of go deeper and like really hear their hearts a bit more. Yeah.
Come on. By the way, I
Beautiful.
also got to meet with Ian. Wow, that guy's story is, yeah. Oh, I was like, when I'm listening, I was just like wrecked. And the fact he's in this group too, I'm just like, wow. Yeah.
Oh, amen. Yeah.
So I keep it ambiguous so you guys can
Yeah, now I'm like,
reach
oh,
out to him.
thank you for the sharing. That'd be great. Okay.
Come on.
Amen.
What about area of growth? Oh, bye, Daniel.
Oh dear.
How about area of growth, Joyce and Ali?
Oh, area of growth. Yes.
Oh yeah, you shared vulnerability.
Yeah,
I guess
vulnerability.
as a team, you've covered all three.
Yeah, but maybe like I think we can start, I don't know, yeah, for us to be also, I don't know how, maybe instead of like sort of doing I mean we still have to cover the agenda, but I don't know if there's a way we can like shake it up a bit to be a bit deeper. Yeah. Yeah, maybe, yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that template that we send out, you don't have to follow it to a T, and sometimes you probably only get through one discussion question or, and that's fine. It's just things that you can process and see what the Holy Spirit's highlighting. But yeah, go deeper. We give you liberty to go ahead and go after that. And I think Daniel and I were talking too, like normally up to this point, it starts to get like the rubber hits the road a bit more. Because everybody's, getting to know each other, they're finding out different boundaries, what people are okay with, where people are at. So from this point forward, it's gonna be, you guys get to kind of ride and journey together. So it's gonna be fun. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Joyce and Ali.
Thank you, Joyce and Ali. Why don't we
maybe
do Elaine?
Okay. All right.
And Elaine, I know one thing for a fact that you could help these guys with is you could share what you did for your group who wasn't doing activations.
Exactly what we did. We did that. We did that. Okay, so I came back, and so before I left in March, they asked for physical meet. So I said, okay, wait till I come back. Unless you want to join other group, like maybe Huzang group, whoever has all the Singapore people. So anyway, so I came back, and then we scheduled a physical dinner, and I told them I want to do treasure hunt with them. Okay, so that was exciting. And the only thing is that Sunday they had something on, so instead of starting at 6, we started at 7, and it became a little bit, or 7:30. I think one of them came 7:30. So what I planned to do had to shorten because we were supposed to have dinner, then go to treasure hunt, and then go back to Zoom. Okay, and so what happened is this. So we did. I mean, we did the treasure hunt. So basically, I asked them to pray about who is it that we're meant to go after, right? So they both got somebody. But I knew before we do that, because I think it's still a bit on the shy side, a little bit. So I said, okay, let's do the restaurant manager first. he was very friendly. We already engaged with him, everything else. So so I just say, okay, I think Angeline did that. So they did that, which is good. And they felt, it's not all that bad, really, right? It was a friendly conversation, and they gave him prophetic word. And it turns out this guy came from Taiwan not too long ago, and he's having challenges, right? So the word given to him, he was very blessed. Yeah. So that got them ready to go. So Dara said, oh, I see somebody wearing orange. What level? Is it a man or women? So, okay, so we went up to another level up. And that was so interesting because we saw a big shop that is selling I think it's a Reebok. Okay, the shop mannequins, the orange. The outfit was orange. So we went in looking for somebody wearing orange, but we didn't see the orange person. But I think it's already leading us to it already, right? So we started. I had to do a little bit of starting, Daniel, like you say, just to get them comfortable. So there was 2 Malaysian girls there, right? So I started to start the conversation. Oh, you know, I just appreciate them for working in Singapore, what they were doing there, da 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 da. And then Dara was the one that they supposed to do this. So I said, you know, Dara has a word for you. So we did that. That's so good. So they said, oh, it's not that bad. Yeah, I said, no, it's not that bad at all. Just strike up a conversation, you know, give them a compliment or whatever. And then, I mean, we kind of felt that, okay, both of them came up with something about blessing. They needed resources, blessing. So sure enough, right? So she's been working so hard. She's only like 21, I think. Yeah, and then sister also came recently from Singapore to work long hours, so on and so forth. So that was good. I think they were very encouraged. So after a while, they were like, okay, let's roll, right? And then we actually ran out of time because Phyllis is waiting for us to Zoom. So we didn't really do the one that Angeline had in mind, which is somebody with a stick on the first floor, you know. But she already did her prophetic for that manager. So I figure you guys have done it, right? So that was exciting. So we went back and then Zoom. Now, talking about vulnerability, right? We were talking about the last week, because in the beginning, I was like, I don't know how to get this group like really gel and just started to feel, you know, it's just not hello, but really get engaging, right? And then the 2 of you, when you came here, gave me some pointer and so on and so forth. And so that, I think I mentioned last time, that the time that we spent at Hosan's house, the last trip that you came, that really helped because I met them physically, and then, you know, I was partnering with Angeline, so we kind of engaged, right? So when Phyllis shared his vulnerability last month, right, which is actually a very unusual thing for Phyllis, as you know, he's still very green, very shy, he doesn't want to say a lot of much. But when he did that, it kind of, I remember last month we only had one because Daryl was on a reservist overseas and he couldn't dial in. But because like Phyllis shared, so then Angeline also shared about her vulnerability. Okay, so that opened up the channel. And the beauty, Phyllis is not here. He had an encounter. He has a testimony. I said you have to share. Anyway, maybe he'll come later. You'll share. So because of what he said, he had an encounter. It was so amazing testimony. Okay, I'll wait till he shares. So that really encouraged everybody, right? Like, wow, God is so real. He sent somebody to encourage you, whatever, and so forth. So I'm really happy that I came back physically and did this meeting, because I believe that it create a lot more trust, and then the 2 of them are really hungry. 2 of them are very open to share, as you met them before. My challenge is that we have one person that hasn't shown up since. Never show up yet, hoping to do so. So now that the chat is a lot more active, you know, I've kind of like decided to, okay, in the past it wasn't all that much. We asked them to share about their testimony or their assignment, and nobody shared anything. So I started to share more. And because I know what they need, I just share some of the stuff that will help them. So that makes it more like, oh yeah, there is value to go into the chat. There is some treasure there. So hopefully the person that is missing is reading, that might help her. I hope so anyway. Yeah, so it was exciting. I'm really happy because that was what I was talking to, last month I had a chance to talk to Sophie, and I said, Sophia, I don't know this whole culture. We are Zooming one in another country. I'm over here, trying to get the timing and all that and trying to get this gelling. But I'm really, really happy to say we're really gelling. And you know what happened at the end? So we're Zooming in, right? And Felice actually wanted to be part of our dinner and when we went out to prophesy. But it didn't really work out because, you're trying to prophesy somebody's trying to record. It actually just won't work out. So he was waiting so long for us. And then so we did our thing. And then I did not realize both of them has to catch a bus to catch an MRT. When we look at the time, I said, oh no, the one has about 5 minutes to catch the last bus. The other one had 8 minutes to catch his last MRT. So I ended up driving them. Like, I hope I don't have a ticket. I don't think I have. So that they can make their last bus and last whatever. They both made it. But it's awesome. I know both of them are signed up to go to Bali. Nepal. So I'm really excited for them. Yeah, so I'm really happy. That it's beginning to, that vulnerability really strike that trust and
yeah. Come
so
on.
that's working. Really, I'm really happy.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I love just that fresh. It seems like you just encountered the Lord even in the leading, and I know it's been a struggle, trying to, start up the engine, getting people together. But I love that you persevered. It seems like God even gave you some keys to unlock the group. I actually just had a call with Daryl, and he was like so excited. I think he's more on the timid end and very shy, and he got to do the treasure hunt, and he's just like, oh man, this is not too, it's not too far-fetched. So way to go, Elaine, and way to go for going after vulnerability. I love that you're creating space for that.
But the beauty also is that, as you know, Phyllis is like very busy with his work and his and his shyness and all that confidence, whatever. So now I believe that he's rise up, which I'm really happy to see that.
Come on. And I can't wait to hear his encounter when he gets
you
on.
have to listen to his testimony. It's like, wow, how amazing. Yeah.
Come on.
So
that's awesome.
Anyway, I'm going to take them to Chinatown Outreach, I think next in May sometime.
Do it. Thanks for sharing, Elaine. Yay, go team. All right, I'm gonna move us along. Let's have another group to share. We will have Hosan, your group. How's your group going?
Yeah, our group has been going great. Esther actually met two of the girls, Jillian and Abby, one-on-one. And I think that's our heart to also like spend more time to get to know one another. Still, I think building on the vulnerability part, but I think most of them are quite open to share what they've been going through. And I think there's quite a lot of growth, I think, in our group actually, even for us as co-leaders as well. It's been fun co-leading with Esther, getting to know each other more, praying for each other. And last week, we just caught up. I think the break in between for the last session and our catch up with them was a bit too far, right? I recall it's like maybe like three weeks after Esther, 2 to 3 weeks maybe after the year one. So I think some of them like needed a refresher as well. Yeah, I think similar to Ellie, quite hard so far getting them to do the activations. Yeah, I think that's the part I think we're still trying to figure out what can we be doing. But I think when it comes to like the practicing, Jillian and Abby have been really, really stepping up in really trying and especially for Abby, I think she's just, overcoming the doubt and the past hurts from Prophetic. I think God is really using the cohort group to really speak to her. Yeah. Overall, I think it's great. I do feel like hopefully we can have more touch points. Trying to resume the Singapore meetup so we can actually get to meet them more. But I'll probably meet Ashley in real life soon. It's been busy. Just came back from a Japan holiday, so almost like 2 weeks plus. So just trying to get back in the groove. Thankful for Esther as well, who's also helping out. Yeah,
Come
Esther, you have
on.
anything else to add on?
Yeah, add your piece, Esther. How's it been for you?
I think it's been really awesome, especially just the one-on-ones. And I think that's probably a key way to get to know the heart of someone is just to talk, one-on-one. And I've learned so much about each of them. And we even unpacked more of their modes of operation, because I think that was the past year one call about the different modes. And I think one of the girls had this revelation that she had the Nabi gift, but she didn't recognize it because it just felt so natural, right? It's like you'd be talking and then, you'd be having a conversation and then the next second you start prophesying, right? Like that's the Nabi gift. And so that was something like upon realizing that, and then after my call with her, I think she started activating more of that in her conversations. And yeah, she in our cohort group, she shared a testimony of how a girl that she was talking to was so touched and she cried just out of that conversation where she ended up, prophesying over her. And I think that was something that she had to get over, that there wasn't this specific kind of, I think she was worried about the awkwardness of prophesying over someone who's unchurched. And so the Nabi gift is really good because it just feels very natural, right? You can it just comes up, just bubbles up in a conversation. And so she said she's been doing more of that and activating that. But I also agree with Hosan. Like I think we want to continually encourage them to take risk. And I think one of the growth areas would be to do more one-on-ones, but also be more active in the chat as well. And sometimes it can be hard because I'm also really, really busy on the side. So I need to be more intentional about putting things in the chat. But it's really nice to see just the cohort group taking initiative to be like, hey, like I'm gonna pray for someone, and texting in the chat here and there. So but yeah, overall, like really happy with how it's going. And I think I personally feel a really deep heart connection with these people.
Come on, that's amazing. Yay, team. I love that. Thanks for sharing. Let me see another group. Oh, Roy and Arrow. I just saw your group a few days ago when I was talking to Rich. Why don't you guys go? What's something you're like it's encouraging? What's been a challenge and what's an area of growth?
They themselves are really encouraging. I mean, seeing them like asking questions, trying to reach out, do the activation ish of things. It's I think I really feel encouraged by the sense. It feels that every month we meet up, we experience different stuff, and that month they will just try it out themselves. And I think something that's probably that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I really enjoy working with Roy. The last session that we did, he came up with a very interesting activity that we could do as well together. So he took pictures of his dinner and he hid it, and then he asked us to go through 5 senses, like what was it? Um, so the taste, the smell, and all of that. There was pizza. There was Peking duck, Beijing, yeah, So it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I think the group is quite healthy. I think we were able to keep up with the activations on the group. Just to share how also is because I think part of the reason is Roy and me. We also do the activations with them. Then we will share our field reports or share what we experienced. If it's not this year, we share last year. So we say like, oh, last year when we did this, this was what we encountered. We share our failures with them. Oh, we shared a word to the serviceman and the person didn't receive and it was awkward. And I just shared it like that. So they know.
Wow.
And I felt like I guess joining them in the activity helped them to be okay to do the activations as well. So just a tip, maybe you guys can consider doing that as well.
That's
Yeah.
really
But yeah, really enjoying doing it together. And Roy is awesome. He's always on the ball, and I think we make yeah, I think that the state of the group is quite healthy right now, so we're happy. Yeah, and they're asking a lot of questions as well. Like they're asking, what does Nabi really mean? What's pathos? Like to go deeper. They want to have a better understanding. So I think that's good. So yeah,
That's
welcome
really
back,
good.
Daniel. Nice haircut
Yeah,
too.
welcome back, Daniel. Thanks for sharing, Ariel and Roy. And I love that. It's learning. I think when we share our downfalls, like the areas where it doesn't work out and the unsuccessful stories, I think it does give people grace. It's like, oh yeah, we're not just looking for like successful stories or successful moments, but it's like the attempt, right? The fact that you tried and you fall on your face and now it's become a fun story. And I think that's inspiring for people too. Yeah, way to go. Come on.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, I think it's
It's-
something.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, Elaine.
No,
Just want to add.
sorry. I'm just go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just want to say, like, Roy is really good at encouraging people through failures. He always says that, oh, we celebrate the attempt. It's not about the success of the moment. Success is defined differently, that you even try and believe in the Lord. Yeah. So he always celebrates that, and I felt something that I learned from him. So it's great. Yeah.
Wow.
Aaron is like super good in being vulnerable. And it's like he always pouring out his heart, like telling all the stories, what's behind, how God's encountered him, and yeah. So he just set a very good foundation for everyone to share, and there's always hope in
Wow.
like in the end of the story. There's always Jesus like coming to reach out, and I really like Aaron. I just love him, as I say every time. I love him.
That's
Yeah.
so good. Love it. Come on, go team. Yeah, come on.
Amazing.
So Felix is here.
I see that.
He
Yeah,
has to share his
Felix.
testimony.
Oh, Felix, are you decent and can share testimony?
Hey Dan.
Hey,
Hi guys.
come
Hey.
on. There's that amazing young man. Cool. So Elaine says you got a story to tell.
It's a few things I share about the fact that, I guess we shared last month about, you talk about vulnerability and all that, and then a follow-up, what happened.
Okay, well, keep it brief, but yes, please share.
Okay. I think like last time I was talking about my own personal vulnerability in the cohort groups as well. And I guess I don't know why, but I just felt like sharing, And like 2 weeks later, something amazing happened to me. So like I work in a restaurant and like I meet like different people every single day, different types of people as well. Like surprisingly, I met this amazing woman over there, and I didn't even serve her. I didn't even touch her table at all. The only thing that I did was I brought her to a table and went to get her check, and that's it. But surprisingly, when I went to get her check, we just started talking. She just started talking to me as I was looking through the recording and everything like that. I was just standing there talking to her for like 20-30 minutes, which was like really, really unexpected anyway. And like she just kept asking me about like very personal questions or like about a lot of things like studies, school, personal life, money, and what am I gonna do. So something like that anyway. And something the vulnerability that I shared during my cohort group was actually about my own alcohol addiction as well. Because because I did find myself like saying yes to alcohol a lot of times, and which is something that I don't mind sharing here as well. So yeah, and fast forward to 2 weeks, I was talking to that amazing woman hanging in the restaurant. We're just there talking, and long story short, um um she gave me like a really huge amount of tip anyway. Like she even called my manager, called my boss over, like saying that, oh, this tip is not for anyone else, it's for me personally, which is really unexpected for me actually. I was like who are you, or why do I deserve this tip? And she just gave it to me and say, this is actually for your study, not for anything else, not for your house, not for your utilities, especially not for your enjoyment, not for alcohol. She specifically said alcohol. So yeah. And surprisingly, we kind of like talk about it anyway. We just talk about it, and I had to like really promise her where I will not spend money on alcohol anyway. I will not drink. So like at first it didn't really occur to me anything else. Because like I was still in a shock anyway. Like why did this happen? Like why did this happen? Like who are you, or who are me, like that? And like surprisingly at that night, it was Friday night anyway. When the customer left, my friend asked me, hey, there's still some extra wine left over here. Do you want to finish it? Like just finish it, just finish it. I just said no to him. So like okay. It was just surprising me. I don't know, it just surprised me where I just said no. And the next day is Saturday night. Same story happened. There's like a few wines left over. We just didn't want to throw it away. And like my friend just offered me, like, just give it to me. He even poured for me. So I just said no to him because of the promise that I made to that woman customer anyway. And even on the third night as well, on a Sunday night, my manager looked at me. Hey, I have like a full bottle of wine here. Let's finish it together, half and half. I look at him. I just said no. And I was just looking back for the past 3 days, like, why am I even saying no? And why am I saying no to every single person here? So like I kind of came to the conclusion, and I even prayed about it, where um it's unexpected, where the woman customer, I didn't know who she was. No one know who she was. We couldn't really found her. We can't found her. We can't contact her or anything. But she just came. She just talked to me for like 20-30 minutes as a stranger anyway. And we even promised each other some things. And it kind of felt like really a messenger to me, where like, because like the previous time I was sharing about my vulnerability, and like 2 weeks later, something this amazing happened to me anyway. So yeah, just trying to keep it brief anyway.
That's amazing.
Wow, beautiful.
You know, I have a feeling, there's just a little feeling that there might have been an angel involved here.
Yeah, that's what Elaine was
That's what,
talking.
that's what I told him.
Mhm. You know, the Bible talks about entertaining angels unaware. And the reason why I say that is because the fruit of this encounter, which is so unusual, right? Like there's a stranger. They wouldn't know whether you did that, right? But there was just something about that stranger, right? And it impacted you, and it struck you, and you were like, hey, I gotta shift something. And that's beautiful, Felix. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably and honestly.
Yeah.
And we're real proud of you here in this group for we're proud of you for your vulnerability, but B, we're really proud of you for actually saying no. We're proud of you for hey, making a good change in your life in that way. So
Wow.
want you to know that. Love you, man.
Okay. Love you too.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If Felix, you didn't share about the amount. Share about the amount.
He
Of
doesn't
tip.
have to share the amount. He doesn't have to share it.
But that was what it's like, wow. Anyway, you don't have to if you don't want to.
It's okay. We can proceed on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Felix.
Wow.
Awesome. Did we get through all the groups, Peter?
We Tim hasn't shared yet.
All right, Tim, share your group.
Well, Jess isn't here, so I have to share on behalf of both of us. Well, I think I think we are. Yeah, I feel that the year ones who came into our group, I think each of them are at a crossroads in their life when they came into the mentorship, and I think that was something beautiful because each person is at a crossroads, and the last few months I think we have been getting to know each other more, and I think the beautiful thing is that there is this growing vulnerability. I think sometimes we share a lot, and it goes quite deep, and I guess one or two persons will share more, and it breaks open something for others to share as well, and those are I guess deep things, and also maybe there were hurts before for different ones, and but I see that as we shared that God is doing something as we did the activations, the soaking before. It was 2 or 3 months ago, and then also the one about the fruit of the spirit. And I feel that God is doing something. God is meeting each one of us, even myself, in a more personal way. And yeah, and I think it's the first half of the year has really been very much inward, for each person, and also for inward in how we are building that group dynamics. Our chat still is a little bit quiet at times. Jess and I, we have talked about how we can, I guess, share more of our own lives a little bit more, share more about, yeah, I shared about how I I always I always see we have a lot of moving companies in Singapore, and I always share how whenever a moving company goes past me, there's a word like shalom, there's a word like breakthrough, and I shared that, and then Jess started to share as well, and I think that like build some momentum in our group as well, and yeah, and I do see that we're looking to do, I think, to build that. How can we as a group pray for like 1 or 2 persons through the rest of the year, and as a prophetic, I guess whether it's prophetic layering or just speaking forth and praying for someone, and that's more like a team project, a cohort project as well. So I guess we are getting there, and I guess being the first cohort next month for the Destiny Encounters will be, I think it will be a watershed for our cohort. Yeah.
Come on, that's
Amazing.
amazing, Tim. I love that. Yeah, and I love that you guys are thinking of ways to make it more interactive and more relational. I actually all the groups. I'm really proud of you guys for, you know, um, for really attempting and being intentional with that. You know, because I think it's really those moments where it sheds off, you know, the roboticness of technology, or, you know, messaging and all of this stuff, but it has that human relational connection touch. And so I love, like, in a lot of the sharings, that's the common thread, is that God is really building connections in our groups. And yeah, I just want to encourage you. Just also, I know you're trying to cultivate more, and you know, as Asians, we're sometimes really result driven, or you know, and whatnot. But I also want to encourage you to enjoy it. You know, enjoy that fellowship, enjoy that communion that's being built. Enjoy the times where you're sharing weakness. Enjoy the times where you're celebrating. Yeah, those are not just like milestones or markers, but it's actually a sense of pleasure that we get to participate in as a cohort group, you know. And so yeah, just really, I'm like, wow, we just had a feast just now, just hearing all of the sharing. I'm really proud of each of you guys. Yeah.
And just a reminder that our goal every year is we want to just build friends of God. So if literally the only thing, like if someone doesn't get a single prophetic word, but they successfully become closer to Jesus, is all that matters. It's all that matters to Peter. It's all that matters to myself. Because that's the only measurement of success in all of this, is that people grow closer to Jesus. Yeah. And so equally, yeah, they signed up to grow their gift. But when they signed up, they didn't realize that we actually just intended to grow them as friends of Jesus. And so same with this group. Our goal with you guys isn't just to have great prophetic leaders and greatly gifted people. We want to see friends of Jesus. And that's the beautiful thing. Well, hey guys, we're going to jump into tonight's teaching. Thanks everyone for sharing. I love that we take the first hour or 45 minutes of our sessions for this kind of stuff, because it's just gold. And so for those that missed the call tonight, I hope that you are blessed when you listen on the video chat later, because equally Peter and I are going to test to see if you listen to any of the testimonies. And I'm joking. If they were listening. Anyway, well, we're gonna jump into the teaching tonight. And tonight we're talking on building prophetic teams. Building prophetic teams. And so can I get Allie just to open the time over the word? Can you just pray for that?
Yeah, I was gonna take my notebook. uh, Thank you, Lord, for bringing us all here today. Thank you, Lord, that you soften our hearts and keep us focused on what you want to tell us individually. I thank you, Lord, that we'll all receive what you want to tell us, and we'll all grasp something and leave this meeting with hearts full. I thank you that everyone here will feel so fed, and we'll have such a great fellowship time together and with you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Come on. Well, I'm excited about tonight's topic. This is a great topic. And I think it'll go beyond just what we're doing this year and what we're growing this year. This is kind of content that goes into your work. This kind of content can go into your ministry. This kind of content can, it's going to go the distance for you guys. And but equally part of the reason why we're sharing this and kind of the placing of this teaching is also because we're getting ready for Destiny Encounters. And Destiny Encounters is where your cohort group shifts from just being a cohort group, connect group, growing in my gift group, to actually we begin to function as a team. All right. We're going to start thinking like a team, functioning like a team, working like a team, because it's going to take being a team for all of us to successfully get through to the other side. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to open with just a scripture here, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, 9 through 12. And it says this: two are better than one, because they have good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. And a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. All right. Amen. So all that's about being a team, guys. All that's about we're better together. Everybody hashtag better together. There we go. So I know that's kind of old school, I'd say. Yeah, beyond our times now. Yeah. Date myself with that one. All right. So we're gonna jump into this stuff here. And the first section here, point A, is forming. How do we begin to form this kind of stuff? And as I share, Peter's going to jump in at different times. But You know, what does it look like to form a team? And so a couple points that I think could just be helpful. Number one, who is drawn to you? Not who are you drawn to, who is drawn to you? Okay. Start looking at that. Pay attention to that. It's always amazing to me. Now, in the context of your cohort groups, you didn't really have much of a choice of who would be drawn to you, who is not drawn to you, all that kind of stuff. We kind of just gave you a group of people. But in a natural context, one of the things is you start looking at who's drawn towards me, who's not drawn towards me. Because the people that are drawn to me very well could be my people. It could very well be the people that are called to walk with me, that are called to journey with me. So I need to start paying attention to who is drawn to me. Interestingly, over the years, I'll tell you the types of people that tend to be drawn to me. People that are young, in their 20s, early 30s, and people that are prophetic tend to always be drawn to me. All right. Interesting. Well, that kind of tells me a little, A, something about me, B, a little something about the people I'm called to journey with. Yeah. Worshipers are also often drawn towards me. And so I have a lot of worship friends. I have a lot of prophetic friends. I have a lot of young people friends. And it's amazing to me who is drawn to me. But out of that, who is drawn to me, I can start seeing what strengths are drawn to me, what weaknesses are drawn to me. Pay attention to that. Number two, who are we called to walk, or are we called to walk together? Am I called to walk with you? Or are you called to walk with me? So once I get beyond oh, you're drawn to me, I'm drawn to you, there's this natural magnetic pull. But it comes to the next question. Am I called to walk with you? Am I called to journey with you? That's a really important point. And over the years, and I'm going to share some out of my own experiences in leading different teams, and especially one team I ran for about 7 years here in Hong Kong called Love Wan Chai. And this was a group and a team I brought into the heart of the red light district in the Wan Chai area for 7 years. And honestly, I did it by myself for the first couple of years. And then naturally, there were people starting to be drawn to me. And then when they were being drawn to me, when it came point of I'm starting to form a team, I had to ask that question, is God calling you to walk with me? And am I called to walk with you? And honestly, any person that comes to me wants to journey with me. That's the number one first question I ask is am I called to walk with you? Am I called to journey with you? Because if not, we will probably pull on each other and take strength from each other, and it won't be a beneficial relationship in the long run. It could end up being a life-draining relationship in the long run. And so, it's not about trying to be pompous or this or that, but it's just genuinely asking the question, are we called to walk together? And if we are, then what does that look like? What does that commitment level look like? What does that heart journey look like? Are we going to share heart connection with each other or not? Yeah. So, I think Peter will share a little bit more about when he came into my life and what that looked like. But those were questions I was asking when he came into my life is, am I called to walk with him? Am I called to journey with him? Well, it's been 10 years. So it looks like it was. The next thing I want to say when it comes to forming a team is you got to have a vision. What is the point of this team? What is the point of this group? What are we doing? Do I have a vision for it? Do I have the foresight to say, when we started Love Wan Chai, the vision was this: either every brothel shut down or every brothel becomes a church. That was our vision. And people were drawn to the vision. People were drawn to that amazingly. If you don't have a vision, you're not going to go anywhere. The Bible says, my people perish for lack of vision. All right. So you have to have a vision to go anywhere. You have to have a vision for a group to even form. Okay. It's not enough to feel connected. It's not even enough to feel called. There has to be a vision in order for a group to actually exist. Where are we going? What's the point of this? Okay. Because if there's no point to it, then we're just a group of friends that like to get coffee, or we're a group of friends that like to just sit on Zoom and talk about the prophetic, but we're not going anywhere with it. We're not doing anything with it. We're not being changed or transformed by it. We just talk. Yeah. There's got to be a vision behind it. Like there's a reason why all of you are on this call. And it's not just because you like the prophetic. It's because we cast a vision for you guys and you said, I can buy into that. Let's run the race. And when it comes to forming, I'm kind of going through all this quickly because I'm just looking at time. I also feel like it's really important that inclusivity is important. Okay. I'm not looking to exclude people. I want to include people. So even in all the years I've led in ministry, I tend to be more of an inclusive person than an exclusive person. It's harder for me to want to exclude people. There are times when I've had to learn the lesson that there are times when you need to. If you're married, you know this point. There are days when your spouse is not going to be okay with you going and hanging out with the boys, you know, and vice versa. So there are days when exclusivity is important, but as a general rule, when it comes to leading a team, inclusivity is important. A place where people can feel welcome, no matter where their background is, a place where people feel welcome, no matter what they're struggling through or what they're going through. There's a place where they can find themselves. All right. And so inclusivity is really key when you're forming groups. I find groups that start with exclusivity tend to die really quick. Groups that are very inclusive tend to have constant new flow of life into them, which keeps vibrancy and aliveness. Now, when it comes to forming, these are just a couple of my points. Peter, I know has some other stories and things he wants to share.
Yeah, this is so good. I really want to, I feel like this is a good teaching, but I also want to prophesy because I felt like every single person here will eventually lead prophetic teams. Like either even some of you are already leading teams, either in work, you know, if in ministry and whatnot. And so I just really felt tonight God is like filling gaps, if you will, and there's a fullness and there's a culmination that he's releasing in the room right now. And so yeah, I just really want to encourage you, like, yes, get the intellect, get the teaching, but also receive it in your heart. Because I feel like there's some things that we're gonna talk about. It's like we always talk about some things you just can't get taught, you catch it, they're caught. And I felt like throughout the night, there'll just be things where the Lord's gonna deposit into your spirit, man. And I want to encourage you, just receive it. And you might not fully understand it, but as you receive it, it will begin to overflow out of your life. And so yeah, that's just the premise I wanna kind of get started with. I love the structure that Daniel's given. I remember early on, so I mean I came from a very different background. And early on I started to do ministry with Daniel, like when he has preaching engagements in Hong Kong, or he's traveling to different places, I'll tag along with him. And to my surprise, you know, he would allow me to prophesy and minister, but he wouldn't try to control or correct my theology. And I grew up in an environment where, I mean, my early years of the faith, you know, in my teens, like I was just in an environment where it's like, oh, you got to have A, B, C, D before you can ever hold the mic. And this was the church I was in. And so it was just so confusing to me. I was like, and then, you know, I think I was pretty normal, but I'm just gonna be real. But now I'm kind of not normal, in my eyes. But there were some people that Danny would bring on his team, and I'm like, man, are they even mentally stable? But there was just this trust, and not to like speak negatively, but this is just vulnerably. It was a struggle for me. I'm like, how can you entrust someone with the mic? Because what if they say something wrong? What if they hurt people? And But throughout the years, I love seeing like Daniel and just different people that model this level of trust where they're just not they're just totally not in control. And they you know there's this level of trust in the Lord that they have with the Lord, that when and people do make messes, and we will get into all of that, because when you have teams, it gets messy. I mean, when you do church in general, it's messy because we're all broken, and we have a lot of different things. But what I've learned throughout the journey was like, whoa, Daniel extended trust and he didn't make assumptions. And that was a revolution for me. And so I love he talked about being inclusive. Who are the people that are called to you, you know who are attracted to you, who like kind of sticks around. And even in that, I mean, there's been so many times in my journey where like the people that are attracted to me are quite interesting. And it's so funny. It's hard sometimes because you'll hear how other people would talk about them. And so there's this couple that I'm journeying with, and they're just drawn to me. They even moved into our building. And but other people don't like interacting with them because first off, they're like probably socially awkward. They don't really know how to hold a conversation, or they're very like, yeah, they're just very interesting people. But for me, I have a special grace for them. I love them. And I believe, there's a reason why they're drawn to me, and there's a reason why there's grace. When you can walk with the hardest type of people, the hardest type of people could be a part of your team or part of your life, but suddenly you find just this overwhelming sense of love, mercy, grace overflowing out of you. When maybe other people, when they see them, like, oh, this guy's so annoying, I don't know how you're spending time with them. How can you even allow them in your team? And this is where we need to learn how to trust God. We need to learn how to trust the Holy Spirit, because he will bring people into our lives that other people will not condone. What other people will not, I'm trying to find the right word, will not sign off for them, if you know what I mean. But those are the people, the type of the people that God's bringing into our lives. And I think of David. When he was running from Saul, he was hiding in the caves, and what type of people did God bring to him in the caves? The rejects, the broken, the people in debt, the really messed up people. And he didn't just kick them out. He took them in. He brought them into his team. And I mean, I love seeing like scripture as a whole, because you fast forward and you see the people that he met in that cave ends up becoming David's mighty warriors. And so sometimes we have to see before we see. Like we have to see. And again, that's the prophetic, right? It's you're seeing something in people before you're actually ever seeing something of substance in their natural life. And so another funny story is I want to just share stories, because I think there's just a lot of fun in stories, and there's impartation in stories. Another thing in teams that I've learned in my journey with Daniel and in our church and different environments that we've been in is boundaries. I remember early on, it was quite interesting because I mean, Daniel talked about 10 years. We've been journeying together for 10 years. But I would say the first probably 4 years, Daniel didn't really share a lot about his internal processes. He didn't allow me into those areas. And I thought it was so interesting. And then suddenly, like after 4 years, 3-4 years, suddenly shifted. And he would slowly like share with me, like, hey, I'm thinking to do this, or I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And for me, like, we learn a lot through observation. That's what the disciples did when they were journeying with Jesus, right? Like they're observing how he's interacting with people. They're observing how he's teaching. They're observing how he's doing life. And so this was an observation I made. I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. I was like, oh, there's a boundary, but I trusted it. I just knew I was called to this relationship. I knew I was called. There was something in the spirit that joined our spirits together. But the outflow or that progression, it was a journey. And I think that's also something that's wise for us, is that, if someone's like struggling with their own life, or they're in a very negative place, we need to learn what to share and when to share. And that's something that I've seen in Daniel's life and just different people's lives, where they're like, they created this healthy boundary. And then eventually now, I get to join in that space where, I hear how Daniel talks about some of his struggles or the things that he's navigating, challenges, and vice versa. And suddenly it's like now we get to enjoy this relationship in this place of partnership. I think early on, if he had started to share his processes and I still had like a very negative, judgmental, critical mindset, I think I would have ended up not being helpful to him at all, honestly. And so it's learning how to like gauge people's maturity and slowly bring them up into that space where you can experience communion in partnership, if that makes sense. And so that's something that I really enjoyed. And now we get to do a lot of things. Like this whole mentorship was birthed out of that friendship that grew over time. And we're exploring like, oh, what is God doing in Asia? God was speaking to Daniel, and he was asking me, what is inside of me? Like, what do you want to see, Peter? And he knew that there was this edge of the prophetic and equipping, and through prayer and process, it birthed this thing, and it's beautiful. Now we get to process things together, pray for one another together. But that's also something to be aware of, because we're going to have very interesting people in our teams. When we're forming teams, you're going to find really, really funny kinds of people that like you're like are red flags, if you will, or people that are like disqualified, if you will. But those are the moments where we need to not reject them completely, if you know what I mean. Like, we don't reject them.
Actually, in the prophetic.
Yeah. We bring them into family where they can belong, but we journey with them in that progression. And so, yeah, those are kind of my thoughts, even in this. And, even for myself, I'm always looking for, I think in that journey of formation, I'm always looking for people. Daniel talked about heart connection, but I want to include this word hesed. I think we've been talking about it and we've been reading about it in Rare Leadership. Is we're looking to build not just like work friends or work partners, if you will, but people that we can actually do life together. People that we can actually, I love that early on. I mean, Arrow, even how you're modeling vulnerability, you're building hesed in that. You're showing like, hey, I also did this activation and I fell flat on my face, and it's okay. And, and owning that part of our weakness, owning that part of our lives where it seems ugly, and those are the type of kind of dynamics that we want to create in our teams, even in these formation stages. And even in the last thing I want to point out is in the formation, you'll start to see what type of gifting and functions and things that they carry. What strengths do they have? Maybe they're seers, and when you're pulling on them, say, hey, I'm in this place, I need your, like I need to see where we're going, and you get to pull on the team. And so yeah, because team is not just top down. Team is learning how everybody brings contribution to the family. And it's through their resources, it's through their giftings, it's through their function. And in that place, that's where you get to experience the body of Christ, right? That's where you get to experience a more fullness, where it's not just you on your own functioning, but you actually get to participate in this beautiful fullness that the Lord's designed us for. And yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on the first part. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll continue on in the journey. So you formed your team. Let's say we figured out who's drawn to me, and we're called to walk together. We've got a vision. Well, how do we grow this thing? Yeah. So growing, here we go. First point I have on here is we want to have a pre-developed culture that people can enter into. Now, in my case, like especially Love One Chai, and actually a lot of times in ministry, the pre-developed culture started right here with me, right? Because maybe people didn't all walk in the same value system or walk in the same core values and ways of functioning and what have you. And so like when I started Love One Chai, I had to create and develop a culture that I was walking into, or that I was walking in, that I could invite people into. And so almost always, I remember every opening when we would go out into, lunch, I had my spiel, and I'd say, hey guys, this is who we are, and I'd give a little bit of a history of how it started. And then I just kind of go through, this is who we are as a community, which was a dignity restoration ministry. And this is how we do that. And then this is how we don't do that, and I would every week announce the same thing. Well, once you got a group of people that have been with you and journeying with you in that, after a while, I didn't have to do that. Because eventually I could say, hey, Sophia, would you do that tonight? And Sophia would do it. Or Carla, we had a girl named Carla. Carla, you lead us in it. Why? Because they had learned by watching, and there was a pre-developed culture that we entered into, a pre-developed culture that said, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And when we create that place where it's actually very simple, you're modeling in the way that you do it, but you're also verbalizing in clear instruction, this is who, this is what, and this is how. All right, and we're going to revisit this in a little bit later, because we'll go a bit more further into like group identity stuff, which we've talked about before here. All right, but having that pre-developed culture that people can enter into, it makes it simple. So after a couple of years of doing it, when we would have visitors found themselves very easily stepping into what we were doing. It was amazing how many people would come to me and say, Daniel, like, I was so scared before I came. I didn't know what those people might do to me. I don't know what would happen to me. Maybe I was going to get a black eye. Maybe I was going to get, kidnapped or whatever, But they would almost always say, instead it ended up feeling like a family reunion. Instead, I felt like I was just walking into family everywhere we went. It was so simple. It was so easy, And why was it? It's because we had made it easy for people. We had a developed culture that we could invite people into. And if you don't have a large group of people, or if it's not already developed in you, but you're the leader, guess what? You're the one that develops it for them. You're the one that models it for them. You're the one that explains it to them. And eventually it becomes our group identity. And then when others come, that inclusivity, right? When others come to participate, it's easy for them to step into it. When we're growing as a team, we need to have goals that we conquer together. Okay? Not goals you conquer by yourself, goals that we conquer together. If you want to have a healthy team, there's always got to be a goal that we're working towards together. And so even in your core groups, and as you shift, as we start going into destiny encounters, start dreaming up what are the goals we want to accomplish. Well, like in a destiny encounter event, what do we want to conquer? We want to make sure what we're conquering is that people, when they come, they encounter Jesus. People, when they come, they're getting a word from heaven. People, when they come, they're getting loved on. People, when they come, they're getting blessed, right? And so then this is what we're doing together. We've created a goal together. Like, this is what we're after. This is what we're going to accomplish together. And here's the thing: everyone gets to contribute to the goal, not just the leader, not just the star players. I can guarantee you, all of you have people in each cohort group that are varying in levels of the gifting. You're going to have people that literally just say, I see picture and this is what it is. And they still don't know how to interpret it. They still don't know how to deliver it. You're going to literally have those people in your group. I'm sure everybody has at least one. And then you're going to have the superstars in your group too. Everybody probably also has one where they're just so gifted, they intimidate you with how gifted they are. But it's understanding it's not about me and it's not about the star players. Everybody gets to contribute to this. And when everybody gets to play, I'm reminded of John Wimber back in the day, and that was his big thing. Everybody gets to play. Everybody gets to play. It's not just about the guy on the stage that sees the signs and wonders. Everybody gets to see the signs and wonders. It's not just about the prophet on the stage that gets to prophesy. Everybody gets to prophesy, right? It's this idea, it's this value system that we have within ourselves that, hey, we are going to conquer things together, that everybody gets to contribute. Everybody adds something of value to this. Everybody has a piece to the puzzle. In the way Paul puts it, when he talks about prophesying in teams, so first in 1 Corinthians 13, he says, we all know in part, see in part. Why? Because by myself, I'm only going to know something in part. I'm only see something in part. What I find often when we start prophesying in teams is everybody ends up getting a piece of the puzzle. Honestly, like it's almost like we start shifting into this mind of Christ together collectively when we start functioning as a team. And it's like, Roy would get the first part, and then Arrow would get a second part, and then whoever's in their cohort group, Debbie and Gwen, and I don't know who else is in your group. Those are the two that I remember off the top of my head, right? So suddenly everybody's getting a piece to the puzzle to what God's saying to that person. God's literally designed it, and this is why it says 2 or 3 prophets prophesy. Well, there's 2 reasons for it. Number 1, it's this, right? Because each person gets a piece of the puzzle. Number 2, any more than that, you're going to overwhelm a person. You got 10 people prophesying over one person, they're going to be really overwhelmed. They're not going to remember half of it, and probably only, a third of it will actually hit. So let's stick to 2 or 3 prophets, right? Why? Because A, they're each getting a piece to the puzzle of God's heart, but B, we aren't going to overwhelm them. All right. As leaders, when we're growing a team, we're always looking for ways to empower others. We're always looking for opportunities. We're looking for them. Okay, so like, you guys might see me do that in small ways, like, oh, Allie, could you open this part with prayer? Or Gwen, Joyce, at the beginning, would you open with prayer? Like, that's something small. Or when it's somebody's birthday, on the same day we have a call and the person shows up, and then, I'll ask 2 people to prophesy. I'm looking for opportunities to empower. It's not me just running something. I'm looking for ways to include people and empower them in what we're doing. All right. Was it last month? Yeah, last month we talked about vulnerability. So part of year 3 is we asked them, in year 3, everybody will either get a chance to teach a session or help teach a session in a year 2 or year 1 call, or everybody will get a chance to help out with one of our 101 prophetic workshops that we're launching this year. And one of the other. So like last month, you guys saw that I included Jess in the teaching, right? We're looking for opportunities. We're looking for ways to empower people. A good leader is always going to lead themselves out of a job. I've done this really well when I know I can just sit down and all you guys can do the prophesying. All you guys can do the, leading. I can just sit down and enjoy it. Like, I did a good job. I led myself out of a job. And here I'm just kind of redefining success, guys. Because success is when it's all about me. And look what I did. And look what I accomplished. And probably all of us to some degree are right there. Look what I can do. Aren't you proud of me? I led that successfully. Pat me on the back. I want to feel good about what I just did, right? But actually, a mature leader, their whole goal in everything they do is they want to lead themselves out of a job. A good pastor will grow you to the point that you don't need them anymore. They've fed you and growed you to where you don't need them anymore. A good parent is someone that has raised their kid to be able to walk on their own, raised their kid to be able to eat food on their own, raised their kid to be able to dream and soar, and then when they get to a place of adulthood, they can be released. And you knew they were good parents when that kid, lands on their feet and does something with their life, right? And you go, wow, come on, good mom, good dad. Like mom and dad literally took 18, 19, 20 years of their lives, invested it into something, and worked themselves out of a job. Although as a mom and dad, you're kind of mom and dad till you die. But you get my drift, right? You get my idea. Like your relational dynamics change at some point in a healthy way, in a good way. Like I'm not my parents' little boy anymore. It was amazing to me when I recognized my dad respected me as a man. I remember that when I first moved out on my own, and my dad didn't treat me like a little kid anymore. That was the first moment he like saw me and respected me as a man. That was amazing. And my dad was a good leader that day, because it was that point that he recognized he did a good enough job. He didn't need to lead me in that way anymore. And so that's our goal as leaders. We're always looking for ways to do that. So we're looking for opportunities to empower others, give people platforms, not to get yourself out of responsibility, but really it's all about empowering. And then Peter already talked about building trust. And I want to cover this point just a little bit more, because when we're growing a team, it's essential to build trust. There was a point, probably like, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years into the Love One Try process, and I had started building a leadership team. And there was a point where we literally just started disconnecting, because all we did was talk shop. And so that came to a point where it was like, we only care about the mission, but we don't care about each other, and something's wrong. So what did we do? Well, we literally stopped everything. And I said, we took like 3 or 4 months, and we just refused to talk shop. Did the ministry suffer? A little bit, actually, it did. But did our relationship strengthen? Yeah. So every meeting became about, how do we build Hesed? How do we build, trust? How do we build camaraderie amongst each other? How do we show that we're there for each other? And that just became the point where it was like, that was more important. So then it came to a point where we said, oh, well, we can't just live off of one meeting alone, because, after 4 months, we were like, okay, the ministry's suffering. And that still is important. God's called, that's what we're called to. That's our vision, what we're moving towards. So we decided, hey, actually, this is worth investing more than one time a month to get together to discuss. And so we started having a leadership meeting that was just purely shop talk. And that was the short meeting every month. We did it on Zoom. It was like 30 minutes. We could get through all our points. And then we had a connect night as leaders every month, where we just loved on each other, built chesed with each other. And out of that, we were successful. Yeah. So another point, when we're growing, we need to understand as leaders, we cover people's mistakes. We always cover the mistakes of others on our team. If you're ever traveling with me, by the way, if someone doesn't like what you did, you probably won't hear about it, unless it was like really, really bad. And I'll give you a bad example later of someone that royally screwed things up. But overall, most of the time, if someone doesn't like something, they have to get through me as their lead, as your leader first. And then I get to determine whether it was actually something that was bad or not. But in the end, I take responsibility for my team. If they've made a mistake, I apologize for it. If it was a success, and I'll actually always tell people what their successes were, and I always give them the praise. If it was a slight mistake, it's not worth talking about, I cover them. So I'll give you an example of something that I still had to cover, but I also had to correct. So years ago, we were in Indonesia, and we brought a large team. It was like 25 people. And we were so huge. So the Sunday, they had like 3 churches for us to preach in. So I split the whole group up into 3. different groups. And this one group went to this church. It was a more formal church. And I had already told everybody, if you go to Indonesia and you're preaching, you have to wear a collared shirt for the guys, and you got to wear long pants, or you're not getting anywhere. And so the team that went to this particular church didn't follow the dress code. So they get there and the pastor reprimands them. Uh-oh. But he was kind about it. I watched the video. He was kind. Well, the guy I had leading that particular group did a great job, and he preached, and then he invited the group up to prophesy and pray for people. And one of the ladies was so offended. She was like super offended. And so she gets up, she goes, I got a word for this church. But let me tell you something. If your word sounds a lot like your offense, it's not a word from the Lord. And she got up and began to prophesy her offense and how God was mad at them for being religious and pompous and judgmental and da 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 da. And boy, that woman went for it. And oh, you would not believe that, chaos. So this is live streamed, by the way. And I'm not there. I don't know what's going on, guys. I've ordained someone to be in charge of this team, and he's never had to deal with it, and he does not know what to do. And this lady's just going off, and then the translator's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I think that you misunderstand. I don't think you understand." And she goes, "Oh no, you don't understand." And it's at that point the video cuts. But it got worse. And so it was horrible, right? That's an embarrassing situation to be in. And here's the thing, she represented me in my ministry. And so because she was underneath me and ultimately she was still my team, in that moment, there were two things. Now, if I would have been there in person, I would have taken the mic away from her immediately. I would have privately reprimanded her, but I would have probably made her publicly apologize, because that just is not okay. But here's the thing, I wasn't there. I wasn't even informed of this till I was like on my way to the airport. So I had no clue any of this happened. And then like months later, I see the video. I was like, oh my gosh. So what do I do in that moment? Well, I have to take responsibility. I cover my team. So I contacted the pastor. I even did a video message for the pastor that they could show the church. I'm apologizing to your church. I wrote a letter apologizing. That was so wrong. I'm so sorry. And I take full responsibility for that moment. And of course, I was never invited back to that church, and that's okay. But when it comes to people making mistakes, as the leader, I always cover people. Now, did I have a conversation with her? Absolutely. That was one of those royal mistakes where you need to have a conversation. But at the same time, I didn't do it at the jeopardy of making her a fool or making her belittled in front of everybody because she made me lose face. As a leader, I cover the mistakes of others. And honestly, I never brought it up with hardly anybody else that was on that team. So only the people that were there and a small handful of people that were close to me that I needed to process with, including Peter, really know about that incident. And I'm purposely elusive when I share the story about all the details, because I don't want anybody to be able to go back and go, who was that? I cover the mistakes of my team. All right. When we cover people's mistakes, here's what happened. People will feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable when they know that you're not going to throw rocks at them, but they know that you're going to cover them. It gives people permission to fly, to be risky. Susie Yare, who most likely will be doing a session on prophetic worship later this year for us, she said her pastor years ago told her, you go do whatever you want and I will clean up the mess. And here's the thing, a good leader knows how to clean up the mess. And equally, a good leader knows how to teach others how to also clean up their messes. But we're not afraid of cleaning messes. So we're willing to create space for people to make mistakes. All right. And then the last point in this, the least team member is always just as important as the greatest team member. The least team member is always just as great as the greatest team member. The least is as important as the greatest. All right. What does that mean? It means that there's a certain level of equality that we show when we're running teams. We're not, how do I word it? We're not showing like, oh, you're the most gifted, so you get the best treatment in my group. I recognize that Selah can be just as anointed in prophesying as Andrea. You know, and when I say Selah, I mean Hosan Selah. She can be just as anointed, or Josiah, Peter's son. Like look to the children. Okay, there's no difference in the kingdom. So we're not the kind of people that create comparisons or create competitions. All right, so with that, I'm gonna let Peter share. He has some points, and then we'll move on to the next. We're just kind of going through some sections here. Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I want to share a little bit of story from my journey of the messiness of it when some of these things are not in place. You know, so many of you guys know I'm leading a missional community in Shatin in Hong Kong. Basically we took John 1 very seriously. Jesus moved into the neighborhood. And so we also moved into the neighborhood to the mission field of the people we're reaching out for. When we first moved in, we didn't have a vision. God highlighted this place, so we moved in. And in that place, because we didn't have a vision, it was so messy. Everybody would keep sharing what they want, what they didn't want. And eventually along the journey, I kept seeking the Lord. I was like, why did you bring us here? What's happening here? And I started to realize, that passage in Psalms where the Lord brings the lonely into families. And it's the whole Malachi 3, Lord, where God's turning the hearts of the father to the children and the children to the fathers. And it's this whole premise that he's restoring family, and he's restoring neighbors. He's restoring connection. He's restoring community in this area. And, a lot of the people liked the living space, so they started to move in to this area, but they did not catch the vision. And so I would say that 5 years was like the hardest time of my life, because I was like, okay, the vision is the restoration of families, which means we're going to go after neighbors. We're going to love on our neighbors. We're going to love on our family. We're going to grow healthy marriages. We're going to do parenting well. But just people were against it. And we wanted to bring people into homes. I think in Hong Kong, bringing strangers into your home, it was just something that's people don't normally do, but we wanted, if we're going to build family, people need to be able to come into our private spaces and be treated as a brother or a sister in that way. And so, when we were first here, a lot of people didn't want to open their homes. And so because we caught the vision, we started to model it. We started to live it. And it was hard because, in Paul's letter, he talks about in Colossians, now I rejoice. This is Colossians 1:24. It says, now I rejoice in my sufferings on your behalf. And with my own body, I supplement whatever is lacking on our part of Christ's afflictions on behalf of his body, which is the church. And, Daniel earlier on was talking about, when you have vision, even if nobody shows up, even if nobody's doing it, as leaders, we still do it. there was times when I first met Daniel and he was going into the red light district. He had someone that was going with him for a whole year, and then she moved back to Europe. And that was around the time I met Daniel. And even when it rained, he would still go into the red light district, even if it was by himself. And that marked me because I'm like, oh man, this guy believes what the Lord spoke to him. Even if no one shows up, he's still gonna do it. And so this was way before, you know, the years when I moved into where I'm at now, this mission field that we're in. And so because I was marked by his example, I was like, all right, even if nobody's doing this, this is what we're gonna do. And God was, the crazy thing was, it was the people that was in the church and in our community, if you will, that was struggling of opening their lives to our neighbors and the people around. But God was doing something so special. In the height of COVID, we would meet monthly with our neighbors. And you have to understand, I think I shared some of you guys here, like the hostility of our neighbors when we moved in here was so intense. Like, I remember we were like putting on our clothes to dry on the clothesline in the backyard. We're on the ground floor back then. And the neighbor slams her door open. She's like, what are you doing? And she's like screaming in Cantonese. He told me, yeah, that's mine. You know, we put that up there. We were here first. You're not allowed in this space. And I was just like, whoa, hi, I'm Peter. And I have no idea what you're saying, but you seem really upset. And but that's how we started. And then the garden too. I mean, some of you had visited. I mean, Joyce, you had visited our garden too. Like, it was so overgrown. One of our neighbors, she was so mean to us. She was like, don't you get near, don't you touch the garden, don't you even go near the garden, get your kids away from the garden. You know, that's for me. Like, I'm taking charge of it. But it was so overgrown. I mean, there was trees, there was just, I mean, you imagine decades. It was like a forest in there. And God started to melt her heart through just love, through acts of service. We knew the strategy was acts of service. Like, they had to experience tangible love. We started to bake goods. We started to like act like when we saw there was trash, we helped them throw away trash, just small things. And God started to soften their hearts. And it was a lot. It was hard because the church was not doing it with us, but we felt the call. So even if no one showed up, we still show up. Even if no one's opening up their homes, we still open up our homes. And I remember we did that for so many years. And now, I mean, we're so blessed. We even have a teenager living with us that, you know, there was a single mom that started coming to our potlucks. And we started doing family with her. We started doing life with her. We started having meals with her. We started having them over. And then we found out they were facing some trouble. And so what do you do when family's facing trouble? You help. You don't just like, oh, I'm sorry about that. So we ended up actually rearranging our pantry room into a bedroom so that, you know, this teenager can actually stay with us. Was it inconvenient? Yes, it is very inconvenient. But I can't imagine life without her. She's a part of our family. And so I feel like what I'm sharing here is when the Lord puts something in our hearts, because I feel like there's times where he'll put things in your heart and it's dormant. And there'll be a time where it's like, okay, it's time to go after that. And sometimes in the early years when things are sprouting, it's just you doing it. Right? It's just going to be you. And you got to be okay with it. You got to be like, I'm just going to show up. I remember even Roy, we were having conversation and he moved into Stanley and he would say, man, God's put that temple nearby our home on our hearts. And I want to visit that place again and again and again, because that's something that the Lord's placed on our heart. Is there people that's coming with him? Maybe now, I don't know. But I remember there was a season where he's like, every week I'm going to show up and I'm going to be present and I'm going to just love on these aunties that are working in this temple. For me, I'm like, yes, that is what the Lord is building within us. You know, there's a formation when we say yes to the Lord. And is it hard? It's very hard. I mean, early on during those 5 years, I was really struggling with rejection. And so the times where like, okay, we're going to do outreach. All right, we're going to do potluck. And then you see no one shows up and you're like, oh, that really stings. And you know, they're at home. They're like just downstairs. It's not hard to just walk upstairs, you know. And if you live somewhere else, it's a whole different thing. But the Lord was dealing with my heart. There's times where we gather and you know, people didn't show up and the Lord challenged. I remember there was a day we were doing like a worship gathering once a month. And you know, we're reaching out to people. Everyone said, oh yeah, we'll be there. And then, you know, we're hosting our home, so we prepare food and everything, and no one shows up. And, you know, I felt that intensity of that rejection. But I was like, all right, even if no one shows up, we're gonna still show up. You know, I don't care, because we came here to meet with Jesus today. And I remember we just had, eventually one other person came, and we're doing worship, and it was the most beautiful worship time that I've ever had. And Jesus walked in the room, and we got to meet with him. And so in the midst of forming teams, this is the element. As a prophetic person, we get to experience communion. And yes, in year 3, we talked about, you know, in this world, you will experience tribulation, but do not worry, because I have overcome the world. You know, that word tribulation is trauma. He guarantees and he promises us that in this world, we will experience trauma, tribulation, rejection is another one of it, right? And persecution, right? A rejection is part of persecution. And so when we encounter that, it's not for us to like, I mean, it's horrendous in the moment, but in that moment, we get to experience such a deep communion with Jesus himself. It's the fellowship of the suffering. And so even as we're forming teams, we will experience these things. We will experience like, hey, how come they're not picking their slack? How come, you know, they're just chilling? What are they doing? Just like sitting on the side there, you know? And, you know, there's going to be so many things that come to your mind, but I want to encourage you, just because it's hard doesn't mean you should do it yourself. And this is, I really believe it's God's design for the church, for teams to rise up. And I love, someone here was talking about I think Tim's group was talking about they're going after like prophetic projects, team projects. And I want to cast vision for that, you know, like, yes, there's things that we give you guys to do as a cohort, but dream bigger than that. Dream bigger than just Destiny Encounter. And even though that's a good like launching pad to learn team dynamics, but dream bigger is like, man, I want to see God break into, like Daniel, you know, the red light district. I want to see God break into education system. I want to see God break into, you know, outreach on the street. Whatever it is, you know, I want to really have us like dream with the Lord. Like, what has he placed in your heart? What is the seeds that he's hidden inside of you? And go after those things, cultivate those things, and find him in it. You know, it's all about like, I love that Daniel's reminder. It's all about friendship with him. And so even as we're talking about developing teams and forming teams, it comes back to that place of communion with Jesus, because this is his example, right? He could have done everything, man. Think about it. Jesus came on the earth. He could have snapped his finger, you know, Thanos style, and then, but in reverse, where he could just heal everybody to be saved because heaven, boom. But what does he choose to do? He chooses broken people. He chooses these 12 really broken people, disciples that are full of pride, immature, you know, rejected, all of it. And he forms this team with them. And in that place of fellowship, in that place of communion, yes, he models all the things that we're talking about. But then we see powerful people extend the kingdom, you know, and I think that's God's heart. And so, yeah, I just feel like he's just casting us vision, you know. And so for some of us, maybe God has placed some of the things in your heart. You want to see eradication of all orphans, you know, like no more orphans on this planet. Come on. Well, that dream is a big dream, and you're going to need lots of teams, and you're going to need lots of people in order to do that, right? And so those are some things that are on my heart. And so another piece that I want to talk about briefly is that everybody has a piece. And I love, you know, in our journey with the missional community, actually, I recently am not leading anymore. There's been another leader from last year that I've been co-leading with, and she has a heart for it. She has vision. And, you know, I led in a season where we're reaching out to our neighbors, and it was powerful. And I really believe we experienced the revival of God in this area. And suddenly throughout these last 2 years, we feel God shifting, and it's shifting into in more the broader community in Hong Kong for parents and young children. And that's up her alley. And so now, instead of me kind of hogging that leadership space, that visionary space, I'm like, oh man, that anointing to cast vision is on you. Why don't you lead us? I'm still part of this community. I want to serve. I'm going to come alongside. I'm going to be the setup guy. I'll carry worship. I don't mind being in the background, you know, because there's in the beauty of team, suddenly the Lord's highlighting what she carries. So now she has vision. And so that's the beauty of team, is that, you know, we talk about this premise that, you know, if we follow movements, movements have a beginning and an end. Like when you ride a wave, you can catch a wave and eventually it will come to an end. You'll have to get off that wave. But if you form family, you're going to be able to ride many, many different movements of the Spirit. You're going to ride many, many different waves of the Spirit and assignments of the Spirit. And I think that's what the Lord's designed us to be. And so a lot of the things that Daniel's talking about is family. God is forming family. And this is where I love that you guys are taking it so seriously to form vulnerability. I love that that is one of the big assignments in our cohort groups. And yes, we do want to go after gifting and, you know, all of that stuff. But when we form vulnerability, we're talking about family, right? And that's the very fallen thing that the devil has destroyed, sadly. But this is our part, that we get to even learn, how do we rebuild family? How do we rebuild safety? How do we rebuild this connection that we can have as a team and work together? And so I love that everybody has a voice, you know, and I also worked with a lot of people that are, you know, in the Spirit. You just see that they're the Deborahs. You know, my wife is included. She's a Deborah. She's a voice. She's a powerhouse. But there's so much timidity and there's so much shyness that she struggled through. But I love that just because she's shy does not mean that she's not a part of the team. No, it means that we journey with her. It means that we give her opportunity. It means that when she has a unction, like she's like, oh, I want to facilitate. Oh, I want to share this. We're like, come on. And we'll come alongside that. And so it's this beautiful dynamic in teams where it's not stoic and it's not dead, but it's living water. And it's always learning how to discern. So like when you go on Destiny Encounters, even though many of you are going to be leading and guiding that time, but you're going to find like, oh man, you got the testimony. Share your testimony. You got the breaker. And we're always looking, okay, God, who are you speaking through? Is it the child? Oh man, telling my kids in the room, it's like, oh man, you got the breaker. Come on, share what you're receiving. You know, and that's what we're going after in this team is we're finding Christ and we're finding how he's manifesting his kingdom. And it might not always be us, you know, as the leader or whatever, the head poncho person, it might not be through us, but we're part of that discernment. We're part of learning how to discern, okay, what are you doing? And in creating space for that. And so, yeah, that's kind of some things that are in my heart, even as we're talking about the formation, things that we get to participate in the formation of teams.
Yeah, come on. And that's really important. That's what leadership is, guys. It's actually, you're the ones that create the space. You know, like leading is really a lot like parenting. So there's a handful of you that are parents. So, you know, like parenting, you do realize like that parenting is not about controlling your child. It's not about making your child into what you want them to be, but it's about creating the space for them to be formed and shaped through the environment that you give them to become who God's made them to be. You know, and that includes all these different aspects of what we're talking about. Like actually a lot of these things are all parenting principles, guys. Every parent I know that's a pastor goes, you know, like my whole congregation's like my child, you know, it's amazing. So all right, this last piece, and then we do want to open up, I know it's getting late, but we do want to open up for conversation together. But this last piece we're going to jump into is called group dynamics. It's the last kind of moving piece. So, you know, like we've kind of, you know, formed a team. You know, we've been growing the team. Now we're kind of a people. We are a people. We are a family. But now we got to kind of learn how to be one, right? We got to figure out what does this look like. So, we've talked a lot about group identity, but that really is core, especially when you get to this stage. Group identity shifts from, you know, at the early stages, you're defining it. This is who we are. This is who we are. You're kind of driving it. But once we get to a stage where we're formed as a family, it becomes about all of us driving it. Okay. who we are, but then also knowing who I am and who you are. Who we are is really important. And that's going to be the driving force of our conversations. But I also need to know who you are, and you need to know who I am. We need to know who we're walking with. We need to know who we're journeying with. I need to know who God's formed you and shaped you to be. Equally, we need to know who we are called to be as a people, but I need to know who you are, who God's designed you to be, so that when I'm running with you and you need to be reminded of who you are, I can do it. And there are times you need to be reminded of who we are. Sometimes, a lot of times, we forget who, like I forget who I am. And I need a helpful little reminder from somebody. Hey, you're not acting like yourself. Hey, you're not being Daniel. You're acting like somebody else. Or knowing the calling on someone's life. When I see someone and I know what they're called to, and I know that they know what they're called to, but I see them moving in a direction that's completely polar opposite of it. Like we need one another to remind ourselves who we are and who I am and who you are. We need that dynamic piece or we're not going anywhere. So group identity is that knowing piece, but there's also a piece called commonality. Okay. In the setting of a team, it's important that there's commonality. In the setting of a wider community, there's a certain set of commonality, but diversity is beautiful too. But when it comes into the specifics of a team, so like we're talking like a prophetic team, right? If we're a prophetic team and we're not an inner healing team, do you see where I'm going with this? Like we need to be common in that value. Okay. So like the inner healing team can be over here, but the prophetic team's over here. Why? Because the prophetic team's going to be prophesying. Inner healing team's going to be over here and they're doing inner healing. There are times when those overlap, but the majority of the time, the goal is this, right? I need to have commonality in my group so that we stay on track and on focus. Commonality also prevents division. Okay. So having a commonality of how we understand the prophetic, a commonality of how we understand who God is, even a commonality of eschatology at times is really important because I believe not in like what's that? Everybody being the same, but I do believe in uniformity, oneness of heart, and sometimes there needs to be commonality. And so when you're leading something that's very specific, it's good to have common purpose, common understanding of things, common expression, common language. All right. So like we've given you guys over the last 2 years a lot of common language we use in our circle. Why? So we all understand what each other's saying all the time. Because actually all of us are coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different countries. And how I use one word as an American might not be how you use a word as a Singaporean, which might not be how you use the same word as a Hong Konger, which might not be how you use the same word as an Australian. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and there was a phrase that was used. And because I'm a multicultural person that lives in all these different worlds, how that word was used brought misunderstanding, even though like from certain goodbye, I don't know who left, but goodbye, Ali. So that one word, which I understood how it was used, and I understood how this person received it because I also understand the cultures from which they were saying it. But that one word brought misunderstanding. And so I'm like, oh, well, And so in my conversation with that person, I was able to help bring a commonality and understanding of how it was used, which helped the person be able to move forward. It's the same in this setting as a community. We want to be able to come to a point as a community where we have certain levels of commonality that help avoid divisions, unneeded disagreements, unneeded whatever. It doesn't mean that we all have to think the same. We're not looking for everybody to be like little Daniels and Peters. We don't want that. But having a commonality of understanding is important. Having a commonality of how we go about things is important. And so Peter and I have been very strong in developing culture, developing our group identity, and even developing commonality of language, and even the way we express theologically the prophetic, so that there is a unison and unity in our community. And so in our context, everybody can understand what's being said, everybody can understand what's happening. So we do our best to avoid these kinds of things. And then equally, when they are bound to happen, when they do happen, what do? Well, we can go back to, wait, what's that commonality that we share, to come back to that place of unity of heart that we share in what we're doing. All right. I'm going to move on from that point. Number two, this is my big thing when we're walking as a community, is we don't throw people away. We don't throw people away. This has been a core value in my life for a long time, and some people don't understand it because our culture loves to throw people away. We call it cancel culture today. You know, it's got a whole term now, cancel culture. But I don't believe in canceling people, and I don't believe in throwing people away. Okay. Even when someone does something that's against the group or even our core values, it does not mean I throw people away. I'm going to share a story around that. So years ago, and this is something that happened within our Love One Chain. So we had one person in our community who went through something, and they ended up vomiting on the whole community. And I mean, most churches would probably kick this person out for what they did. I mean, like, it was vile. They were cursing everybody out. They were, I mean, it was nasty. It was bad. And this was a person that was one of our leaders, but they just had a breakdown moment, and they just went all over everybody. And it was the day before I had to fly for a month-long trip to Europe to preach. And I almost canceled my trip. And so the group of leaders and I got together, and we said, well, what did we do? We prayed, and we said, we don't throw this person away. This person's still our family. Even though what they did was hurtful, even though it's going to take time to repair the relationship, even though what they did is, and I really struggled the next day. The Lord said, get on the plane. So I got on the plane, and I just trusted the Lord. And here's the thing. During the month I was away, specifically the people that got targeted in this person's vomit, not physical vomit, but just verbal vomit, God started working. God started moving, and reconciliation slowly began to where that person was restored into the family. And then when it was all said and done, we ended up having a big group together, hashing it out, and then saying, hey, you know what, we don't throw you away just because you hurt us. We don't throw you away just because you messed up. We don't throw you away because the way you decided to do that sucked. You're still part of us. You're still one of us. And a while later, they did need to leave the community, and it was more so their decision to want to move on, but they were able to leave with a blessing rather than a kick in the butt. Why? Because our core value is we don't throw people away. We don't cancel people just because we don't like them. We don't cancel people just because we don't agree with them. We don't cancel people just because they hurt me. I want you to think about this, because, you know, if Jesus ran his ministry like that, we wouldn't have Peter. If Jesus ran his ministry like that, we wouldn't have any of the disciples. They would have all been like burned up like that. No, when Peter made his great mistake of denying Jesus in front of Jesus, what does Jesus do? He makes breakfast for him. He goes and finds him and makes breakfast and restores him. And I want to tell you, if you're a leader in a group, you're going to have people that make you want to throw them away. I can guarantee it. You're going to have people in the years, maybe not currently in your, maybe you do, I don't know, in your current cohort groups. I'm not saying maybe you have the perfect group, I don't know. But there might be people you want to throw away. There might be people that you're like, oh, I don't know about this person. They're annoying, or they're this, or they're that. No, we don't throw people away. We don't walk away from people. We find them, we make breakfast for them as leaders. We restore them, we love them back to life. And we do our best not to burn bridges. There's a bridge, let it be. Don't burn it. Because again, this is what we tend to do. When we throw people away, we like to burn the bridge and make sure they can't come back over. Don't do that. Create a pathway for relationship to remain. If you do this, you're going to have healthy communities. You're going to have real communities. You're going to have real teams where there's real dynamics, and people are going to be messy. But just because they're messy doesn't mean we throw them away. It means we walk with them, we journey with them, we love them through it, we keep a bridge open for them. And if there's a bridge open, there's always a chance for restoration. Two more dynamics, and I'll throw it over to Peter, and then we'll just open up for conversation. It's the importance of grace and truth, guys. We want to speak truth. Truth is a very important factor, but the Bible says Jesus came with grace first and then truth. All right. And when we operate in this principle of grace, I act in grace first, and then I move in truth. What does that look like? It looks like the woman caught in adultery. So the woman caught in adultery, what does Jesus do in that moment? He demonstrates the principle of grace and truth. The woman's caught in adultery. He practices grace. I do not condemn you. Followed by truth, go and sin no more. The client that Felix had practiced grace and truth. Hey, Felix, here's a large sum of money I want to tip you with. Here's some truth, though. Don't waste it on alcohol. That's the grace and truth principle at work, and it works. When you got to bring correction, it's important when we correct that we correct out of grace and then truth. When we start with truth, we're always going to come on heavy, and it's going to feel more like a slap in the face than it will something that actually builds somebody up and helps put them in the right direction. When we start with grace, what happens? Well, connection happens. Love is happening. Hesed is starting to happen. I can trust you. Hesed, love, grace, it breaks down the wall and barrier that whatever just happened has been built. And once that's down, I can speak truth and love to you. That sets the foundation for righteousness and a difference. And you're going to find, as leaders, we need to have grace and we need to have truth. All right. All right. Last thing, as we grow together and further develop I don't understand this. As we grow together, we further develop group identity, mission, culture. Oh, there you go. As we continue to grow together, as we're building this together, as we're in it together, what happens? It'll continue to further develop group identity, further develop mission, further develop culture. And here's the thing, when you find your people, it's not going to just be you. So again, I started it all, Love One Chai. I started this with Peter. And just talk about this. This is our 4th year doing it. And already, people are taking ownership of it. And when people start owning it, it starts changing things. Our group identity starts shaping into a little bit slightly different. Like now Jess is like journeying with us really closely. Guess what? A lot of Jess gets put in there. Like we didn't have a session on vulnerability last year. Now we have a session all on vulnerability. Why? Well, that's a core value now that we carry as a community, because Jess is a part of my community. And vulnerability is a definition of Jess. And this is the thing, when we continue to grow together, we all begin to shape and influence and form these things. And there will be certain things that we laid as foundation that will always be core. But then as the community continues to grow, as the team grows, the dynamics begin to change, the mission begins to expand. I remember with Love Wanchai, like it started growing. Like once my team grew, then even who we were reaching, it started going beyond just brothels. Some of our best fruit were not out of brothels. Some of the funnest stories came when we did dress up parties and walked down the street kind of crazy and leading people that were just walking down the street to Christ. Okay, what happened? Well, the team dynamic, the family, the bonding, but it became bigger than me. This is starting to grow to a point where it's bigger than Peter and I, which is good. It's healthy. But in it, things start to grow, things start to expand, and that's healthy. Don't be worried as a leader when others start taking ownership. Don't be worried as a leader when others start saying, well, what if we add this piece to it? And what if we add this piece to it? And what if we add this piece to it? Well, I'll say this, if the piece isn't taking away from what you're doing, let it be added, because it's going to make what you're doing all the more beautiful. So those are things when we're leading teams and some dynamic things, understanding, following through. And so, yeah, we want to open up now for Q&A and activation. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts? Maybe you're like, all that sucked, Daniel and Peter, we don't like it at all. I just want to tell you that we're open, we're big enough people, we can take it. Elaine, you muted yourself.
Yeah. Okay, this last statement that you said, that you will add this piece as long as it doesn't take away something. What can you repeat?
As long as it's not taking away from who we are, right?
Oh, okay.
So like let's say this is a prophetic group. Right? So we're all about prophecy. Well, let's say someone says, I want to make this an exercise group. Okay, well, that's going to kind of take away from what we're doing. Now, if you want to make some prophetic exercise, I'm fine with that. But when you're wanting to make it about doing pull-ups and sit-ups and like, let's not do a prophecy anymore. Okay, well, that's kind of taking away.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. But if it's a piece that doesn't take away from who we are, it's just going to add beauty. So like when Jess added the vulnerability piece, it made what we do more beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
And you're welcome. And there's pieces all of you've got too that I think, are amazing. Errol.
Yes, I wanted to ask, you there was this part where we were talking about when we meet some people that may not really be part of they're a bit different and we cannot really journey with them. How can we navigate through that? Let's say you have someone that joins the team or joins the group, and we realize that perhaps this person is a bit different, maybe mentally challenged perhaps. How do we navigate that? Yeah.
When you say pragmatically challenged, give me an example.
No, mentally challenged.
Oh, mentally challenged.
Yes, but
okay, like they're dealing. So maybe like they have mental health issues.
Yes, for example.
Okay, sure. Well, it goes back to number one. Are we called to walk together? Are we called to journey together? If not, okay. let me help you find a place where you do fit. Let me help you find a community where you do fit. All right. Now we just recently had someone who actually we just got baptized into our community, has some really major mental health issues. And when I say like he's more on the extreme spectrum of it all. And like it was beyond what we could do as a community to help him. So we continue to journey with him from a certain space, but we actually introduced him to another community that actually has the resource to journey with him and help him in a way that could be helpful for him. And so in that case, we don't disconnect relationally, but we do connect them to a community that actually is better resourced to help them in that way. So yeah, if
Yeah, let me add a piece too, because I think when I was sharing that, I think I had said about the mental health, but I think it's more what I was meaning about more like relationally awkward. And I remember early on when I was traveling with Daniel, there'd be this other sister that we had that would travel with us. And I remember there was a fun moment where we're at a ministry engagement and we're prophesying, and she's kind of awkward, and so she tells this guy who's probably in his late 40s or 50s that he's pregnant. And then there was no context, there's no interpretation, and then she's like, "Yep, that's what I got for you." And so in that dynamic, Daniel, I mean, he didn't keep her from prophesying. He didn't not allow her to be on the team, but he had to cover her. And so then he took the mic, and then of course he helped, like, oh, what she might mean is maybe there's something that God's birthing in you. Maybe it's a work or a business or a ministry type of thing that, and then because the guy was like had a pale face, and so like in those type of moments, like we cover each other, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know if she has mental health, but yeah, relationally awkward. Like, yeah, I think that's what I was trying to get at.
yeah. Yeah, I saw
Thanks
host.
for-
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Errol, was there any follow-up to that or?
Yeah, a quick one. Honestly, thanks for sharing. Just wondering, I think practically when we're connecting them to the other group, that's also another challenge. And yeah, I think it's something to think through as well. Like, how can we gently let them know, hey, actually, maybe this group it may not be for you, and maybe another group will be better for you. I think it's just a thought. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think when we had this conversation with this guy, we were just honest. Now, when I say mental health issues, this guy actually has some really strong, like manic issues, and diagnosed with manic bipolar. So when he's manifesting manically bipolar, we literally do not have the skill sets in our team to navigate that. There's another church community that literally has mental health professionals in their team that know how to navigate those things. And so we were just bluntly honest. And so we were like, we're not disconnecting relationship, but we think this might be a healthier fit for you and that they can help you in your journey. They can be there with where you're at right now. And we are not disconnecting relationally. We are not disconnecting. We're not throwing you away. We're going to continue to be friends. In fact, I just met with this person this morning. All right. So I continue to meet with them. But as far as in our community context, now this had nothing to do with prophetic ministry or anything like that, but in our particular community context, because this is something as leaders you do have to face. As leaders, there are going to be times and moments where you have to look at a situation and you say, okay, I'm not going to throw someone away, but are they actually going to be like are they going to be harmful for the community at this stage? And if they are, I need to find a way that doesn't throw them away, but at the same time, I need to find a way that can put them in a position where they can be most helped but also I have to safeguard my whole community. In the case with this person, when they're manic, they're very violently physically aggressive. So it wasn't safe to put them in a context where there's kids and families if they have a breakdown, right? So I had to wrestle with all that, but I also want to keep my core value. I don't throw people away. So not throwing them away. It's like throwing them away would just say, I disown you, never come back. We don't talk to you. And sadly, a lot of people have experienced that from communities and groups and churches. But I have found just being vulnerable and honest and just saying, hey, we are not equipped. You do know what you're going through, but we're not equipped with the know-how to handle this. So we would love to be able to connect you with somebody with a group that can, and which we have. And he's now journeying with them. But we're still here for you. You know, you want to talk one-on-one, I would love to do that. But I'm not also going to put him in a position where I'm like, I have to safeguard small kids and women that you almost hurt the last time you're at my house. So you know, I'm not going to say that out loud, but that's in the back of my head as well. You know, and so anyway, I mean, in this case, it's with a lot of compassion, a lot of care, and you know, like it's not his fault that he suffers in this way either. So like, I'm not going to treat it like it's his fault, but we have to be wise in how we manage it, and I find just being vulnerable and honest with him, and he was very receptive when we actually brought it up. And so I think if it's a situation where you feel like, hey, our group or our community really doesn't have the skill set for this, you can do 3 things. Number 1, Lord, are you inviting us to? Because actually I also had to pray too. Lord, are you inviting our community to get to journey with this guy? Do we need to learn some new skill sets? Yikes. Okay, no, he's not. We're okay. We're not good. Okay. So then I've got to go into this session of, okay, well, what's the safest for our community? Because God's entrusted them to me. And then what's the best way so this person's not being thrown away? What's the best way to get them help and placed where they need to be? And so you kind of have to go through that process. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful. Yeah. All right, Hossein, you had a question.
Yeah, great question so far. I think just now you mentioned just very briefly, what do you mean by commonality of like eschatology at times is really important in like prophetic community?
Sure. Well, I'll give you some examples. All right. So let's use eschatology. All right. So in our group, we don't have a set eschatology, but we don't really talk too much about eschatology. What is eschatology? It's the end of things. It's the study of the end of things, or maybe the study of the beginning of new things, you know. In essence, you know, it's what you believe about the second coming of Christ. I happen to know I have some different perspectives in some groups. All right. But I know that if a group majors on that, okay, then the whole group, every prophecy is going to be about the second coming of Christ. Every prophecy is going to be about this. Every prophecy is going to be, right? So when we come to a point of commonality, like for us, eschatology is not a massive thing. So one of our core values is we don't really make it a point to actually talk about that. Now, if you want to talk to me privately, I have no problem. Okay. So a commonality for us is that eschatology is not the center point of what we do with prophecy in this community. Eschatology is important. What you believe about the end of things is important. And Hossein and I have had a lot of conversations on it. Right. But the commonality factor for us is that actually we don't actually make it the point of what we do. All right.
So like
other groups that do. But here's what happens. If we start making it a point, I can guarantee you just in this room alone, we probably have, you know, at least 4 or 5 different opinions on that. And then we start debating, no, my opinion's the right thing. No, my opinion's the right one. No, my opinion, you know. he's coming on this date. No, no. And what happens? We end up with fighting. All right, because this particular group here, we're from lots of different church backgrounds, traditions, groups. We've got people from IHOP, so they're going to have, more of an IHOP eschatology. You got people that are connected to Bethel, and they're going to be more connected with what Bill and Chris teach over there. You're going to have people that are from Joseph Prince's church and whatever he teaches on it. I don't know what he teaches on it, but like you're going to have lots of different opinions and variations. So for us, a commonality feature is that we don't talk about it here. If you want to talk about it on your own, that's fine. But having a commonality around that is important. Equally, we do have a commonality in theology in which we teach. We have a commonality on the importance of, like, we teach from New Covenant perspective on prophecy rather than Old Testament. Jesus is our centerpiece. Jesus is the language in which we want to speak. That's a commonality point in our theological perspective on prophecy that we do center on here. So equally, when you got groups that come in and they come in from different perspectives, it can become suddenly really divisive if there isn't that commonality of value system, commonality, whatever. So if you got, these guys that are Old Covenant prophets, I'm going to call out everybody's dirt in the meeting, that's going to be divisive. And so this is why, especially in a more specialized community where we're going after something, having commonality of certain things that we share is important. And then equally saying, okay, this isn't for what we're going after, this part or this piece isn't the most important piece. So that's just not what we're going to talk about here. So if you came into this prophetic community thinking, which we've had actually, we had one time a person joined first year and they were like really shocked that we weren't talking about the end of the world, and they were really shocked that we weren't talking about the second coming and who the Antichrist is and all these things. And they were like, what kind of prophetic ministry is this? I thought that we were going to talking about, like when Jesus is coming back in 2025, and we're not talking about that. So, and again, I'm not, going off on eschatology per se. I mention it just more so to say, like for us as a community, a commonality feature is that that's not a main point in the function of what we're talking about. And if you want to talk about that type of prophecy, it'd probably be better to start a different group where you can have a commonality in it rather than it becoming a divisive thing in this context. Yeah. Does that help, or is that even answering the question? Or
Yeah, I was just wondering what the context was, because I mean, like, this is, yeah, I think kind of like summed up the question, like,
okay, cool.
stuff like that.
Come on. Any other questions you had, or?
No, I think there's a lot of things to digest. I mean, it's whatever you guys shared is like what I've also experienced really, but just written down.
Totally. Come on. Any other questions? Joyce.
Yes. Yeah, I really love the sharing. So good. Yeah, so much to digest. I was really caught by the first part, and I think which is really good. We're sharing about when you just observe, like, like who is drawn to you, and also like who you're meant to journey with. So I think my question is like, kind of, is there a separation between like your sort of core group versus like like just a wider group where, I don't know, like maybe Jesus, he had like his three, and then he like brought them to see some miracles, but like the rest didn't. So kind of like, whether there's that, how do you differentiate between people that are really the ones that you will really even make decisions together, pray about like, should we do this or that, versus those that are just kind of like part of the community but not really decision makers. Yeah, so how do you
They do.
how
That's a simple answer. I mean, like, they do exist. I mean, like, I know you're moving, you're in a relationship with somebody and it might move towards marriage. And the reality is, once you're married, like that's your starting point, that's your core. Like, every decision's got to be bounced off that person. It's not going to be like, oh, maybe if and or. It's like, oh no, I have to walk in alignment with this person. This person becomes the voice of God to me, right? Same with those that I feel called to journey with. All right. There are varying levels of that. So there are people that I have a really tight core of people that are really trusted, people that I trust my life with. And they're not actually like a million of people there. It's a very small core group. Peter's in that group. I trust Peter with my life. But because of that, yeah. And the broader it gets, the less people there are that gets to see that space or get invited into spaces of decision making for my life. And so I'm cautious in that. But knowing who I'm called to is really important, and then knowing what level I'm called to walk with you. Like, okay, as a mentor, right? My calling as a mentor in your life is not to make decisions for you. Yeah. That's not my calling. That would be you and your husband and maybe a couple close people that you'd say, let's discern God's voice together. Now you can invite me into that group, sure, but like that's not my role. My role is to teach you from my life experience, right? So there's a dynamic in the relationship that we have. Now, if I became close friends with you beyond that, maybe, but like in the immediate direct relationship we share, there's a dynamic. Now we're called to walk together because we're doing that, right? We're walking, journeying together, and it's awesome. I enjoy it. I enjoy all of you. But there's obviously a certain layer of boundary in the level of relationship in which we share. And even if you came and asked me for advice, it doesn't mean that you have to follow my advice. I'm just a mentor. I'm not your boss. Now, if it comes to my cohort groups that you're helping run, maybe you should follow my advice. But but when it comes to your life, right? And you're saying, well, what should I do in this? I can offer you godly wisdom, but it's up to you to determine. And you can go to those people that are closer to you and say, hey, this is what was presented to me. What do you think about that? And their answers are going to definitely hold more weight and value. Okay. Like Heidi Baker is a really close mentor and friend. But, in my last relationship, literally a week after my first date, she said, when are you guys going to get married? Well, guess what? I'm not going to hold that very heavy when Heidi Baker says you should get married, because she was married after 2 weeks. And and I'm like, we just went on a first date. Right. And so hold on there, right? So, but I could have gone, oh, my mentor said this, so let's go to the courthouse, let's go get married because my mentor said. No, you got to test weigh anything and everything everyone gives you, but definitely certain people are going to hold more weight and value. If my mom and dad said that, I'd probably go, wow, that's shocking. I don't think they would have normally said something like that. If they're saying something like that, maybe I need to consider that. Yeah. And so, and does that help? I don't know, maybe I didn't answer your question.
But how do okay, how will you differentiate between someone that is, because some friendships can be quite recent, but you find that, oh my gosh, I like when you first met Peter, this person is meant to like eventually be in my core group. So kind of like that versus like, I think I'm good, I got my core, I don't really need to like let more people in. I don't know. So how do you, yeah, kind of.
Well, I think
Oh.
I mean, honestly, you just answered your own question, right? Like I'm good, I'm full. And there's an element where I'm not looking for another best friend.
That's true.
Right? My life is full. Now, if there's an opening, sure, but overall, like my life's full. So I'm not looking for that. I think innately that, but innately there's also times when you do meet people and it's divine. So some of you might have met Nancy Vu a couple of years ago. We prophesied over her, and she's a really good friend of mine. And when I met her, I knew it was a divine connection. Now, is she my best friend? No. Is she my core group? No. But I knew I was called to walk with her, and I knew that there was an element of closeness that would be involved. And she's been a good friend all these years. All right. But it was like this innate knowing. I just kind of know. Now, I also understand that some people are more, and Peter might be able to, I think, has some things he wants to share into this as well. So I'll finish with this little piece. There are some people that just everybody's their best friend. All right. And those people really do need to learn how to distinguish, because those people tend to get hurt a lot too. And so if you're the type of person that everybody's my best friend, doesn't matter when I met you, you probably need to start choosing a little bit more and asking the question, God, am I called to walk with them? Okay. Once you know the answer to that question, because like if everybody's your best friend, it's just easy because people are drawn to you, right? Right. So then it's asking God that question, am I called to walk with them? And once I know the answer to that, it can naturally progress to figure out what that level or layer is in a very natural, organic way. It doesn't have to be like, let's DTR every 5 times that we meet and figure out where we're at in this journey. Are you my best friend? I don't know. Are you my, you know, like we don't need to do that every 5 times, right? It can naturally progress. You know, almost every person that is my closest friend in my life was natural. Like maybe the meeting was supernatural, and maybe the instinct feeling of connection was supernatural, but the progression of how we grew to where we are today was very natural and organic. All right. And so that's the part of, you know, just learning that discernment piece, I think, of just really asking the Lord, am I called to? And I still probably am not answering the question. Peter might have a better.
I think another
answer.
piece that would be helpful is to know that, so like Daniel's sharing more from his life, people that are in his inner circle speaking into his life decisions, like do I stay in Hong Kong? Do I leave? Like my visa's not coming in. What do I do? Like that's his life, right? But I think maybe what you're asking is like maybe in a ministry context or a work context, you'll also find people that are drawn to your heart.
Yeah.
And in that context, sometimes it could be seasonal. The relationships that we form will be forever, even if someone moves on, but maybe they might feel they're working with you in the season. There's a strong bond, there's decision making, their core team, they're like your, you know, confidant, you know, like you share everything with them, you process, you make decisions together. And then maybe 5 years down the road, 5 years down the road, they're still your close friend and business partner, but then suddenly God's like, oh, go to Dubai and start up some kind of business and reach out to the wealthy people there. You know, like that connection's still there, but then God will find replacements. And throughout your journey, you'll find like, oh, yeah, there's more people that are drawn to not just my life, but to the vision that I'm walking in the context of work or in the context of ministry or whatever the context is. So I think that also helps too. Like in that case, there are people that come and go. You know, like in our missional community, I mean, thank God there's a lot of people that came for a season and there was an assignment. Like God was reaching out to the neighbors and breaking off this generational stuff and just bringing this level of safety in this geographic location. And so there's people that bought into that and they're like, whoa, we got to run together. They preached at times, they brought food at times. Someone even paid like it was like our Christmas outreach, they paid it all, you know, they invested in it. There's elements where they brought into that. And you know, after COVID and then after the season shifted, they left. And you know, of course, initially at the time I was grieving, I was like, oh, I was like, what happened there? But the relationship never left. It was just they left because the assignment lifted. The assignment was fulfilled at that moment. And so it's learning how to like, oh, okay, there's some people that were joined. Like for me and Daniel, like actually on my part, I feel like I'm joined to Daniel till death. Just like marriage, kind of. You know, like I'll still be doing different things, but like he's gonna be someone that I'm gonna be journeying till I die. I don't know why, but I just know. But that's and then so we'll ride different waves together, like this mentorship. I don't know how many years we're gonna do this. I don't even know what it'll evolve, and it's gonna keep evolving or whatever. It's gonna birth whatever things. Awesome. And we'll ride many waves together. But then there's also some people where like this couple that I'm journeying with. It's like I feel there's a divine connection. I don't know how long I'm gonna be journeying with them. But I'm going to love on them. I'm going to make decisions together with them in that context that we're journeying together. You know, I want to see God move. We're going to see all the, but one day maybe I might move or maybe they might move and get launched out into another space. And I have to be okay with that. And so it's learning like these different dynamic in these different spaces, learning how to be aware of like, who are these people that God is bringing alongside, either for my life or also for the role that I carry in that space. Yeah. Anyways, that's my 2 pieces. Does that kind of help a little bit, Joyce?
Really? Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciated both perspectives and yeah, both for personal and ministry and seasonal kind of like groups that come together. Yeah. Thank you. Helps.
You're welcome.
That's good.
So, any other questions? Going once. Going twice. All right. Well, one thing we wanted to do before we wrap up this session, we want to make sure we got time to prophesy over each other. And so we're going to break up into small groups and we're going to prophesy over each other. Now, I know you guys don't like popcorn prophecy. So we tried to do that in Bali and you guys like just went on and on and on till 1:30 in the morning. So we won't do that. But what we will do is we're going to break up into these breakout rooms here. And so I'm going to do 2 breakout rooms, 3 breakout rooms. And yeah, I think, Peter, what's a question we can ask the Lord?
I'm blanking. Does anybody have an idea? What's a question we should ask the Lord?
Where everybody's
See,
tired.
we gotta include the team.
Esther Co., tell us what is it we're to ask the Lord when we're prophesying tonight? You're good at asking questions. That's why I'm going to ask you to do this.
I would say, maybe what culture do you want to cultivate in my life first as a leader?
That's a great question. So you guys are going to prophesy according to that question. You're going to ask the Lord that question for each person in your group, maybe just one at a time, like, just one prophecy per person. So you kind of going around. So, but yeah. So you're asking the Lord, what kind of
Culture. Because how you said earlier about it starts with you first, creating that culture.
So what kind of culture of a leader are you making me into? That's the question.
Same vibes, yeah.
Okay.
What kind of culture are you forming in me?
Yeah.
It starts with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so but you're not going to ask that question for yourself. You're asking it for the person you prophesy over. All right. So what kind of culture are you forming in them in this season, Lord? All right. So with that, you should be getting an invitation. Tuesday. Now, if you were in Post and Script, you already heard this announcement, but on Tuesday night, we are doing a session on for a prophetic school in Australia. And I need some of you guys to volunteer that night to help prophesy over their students. Now, we're not going to prophesy over all their students because they got like 120 students, but we're going to prophesy over some of them. And I've only got 2 people that have volunteered, and I need a bigger team than that. So if anybody's free in Hong Kong, Singapore time, it'll be 5 to 7 p.m. So if you can come join, we'd love to have you. But you need to let me know soon so I can let them know how big of a team is going to join. Okay. And then Roma Waterman is speaking for year 1 on Thursday night. So if you guys are free Thursday, please join. And she's bringing some of her students on the call too, and they're going to prophesy over us.
Oh, great.
So, and we're a much smaller group. We're not 120 people. Even if all 3 years come, we're not even close to 120 people. So there's a good chance that, maybe you might get a prophetic word. I don't know how many people she's bringing. So, but it's going to be great. So please join. If you can join both, that's great. If only Tuesday, great. If only Thursday, great. But let me know if you're going to join Tuesday. Okay. All right, let's wrap up.
One quick question. Do you know your date coming to Singapore yet or not yet for June? Is it finalized?
We weren't coming in June. We were looking at July.
Oh, July.
And Peter and I are processing through some things right now.
Okay.
That's now got a little bit of a question mark on that trip for July.
Okay.
So we'll keep you informed.
Okay. I thought it was June. Okay, thank you.
No, missions trip June. And then we'll also be getting details soon out about the retreat. I've been looking at the resorts that they're sending in, and they're really beautiful in Thailand. So January retreat, guys, it's gonna be awesome. Anyway, all right, let's wrap up. Since I'm gonna see you next week, Esther Coe, you get to close us in prayer.
Woohoo! Good morning, everybody. Let's close in prayer. Father, I thank you so much for our time together today, Lord. I thank you for speaking so profoundly through Dan and Peter, Lord, sharing their experience and wisdom and knowledge in this area of building prophetic teams. Father, I just pray that your word, Lord, will just be seeds sown deep into our hearts, Lord, that will bring about transformation. And I just pray that these are the things that will be caught and not just taught to us, Lord. So I just pray that you just send us off safely into the rest of our week, that you continue to guide us and protect us and continue to be with us each and every moment. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Woohoo.